Long before cities, highways, and borders, Washington held secrets that were never meant to be forgotten, yet many of them were. Beneath rivers, under cliffs, and below quiet water, entire chapters of human history are hiding in plain sight. A single skeleton found by accident challenged everything we believed about the first Americans. A rock shelter filled with ancient lives was lost forever under rising water. Stone carvings along a mighty river still speak, but in a language we no longer understand. And beneath the calm surface of Puget Sound, whole villages may still rest where the sea slowly claimed them. These are not legends from faraway lands. These mysteries are real, and they are here. Each story raises the same haunting question: how much of our past is already gone, and how much is still waiting beneath our feet and waves? Tonight, we uncover 4 ancient mysteries of Washington that refuse to stay buried. Kennewick Man. What if I told you that one quiet day by a river in Washington changed everything we thought we knew about the first people in America? No gold, no lost city, just a human skull sticking out of the mud. But that skull started a fight between scientists, tribes, and the government that lasted for decades. And even today, parts of this mystery still don't sit right. This story begins in 1996, near the Columbia River, close to the city of Kennewick, Washington. 2 men were watching a boat race when they noticed something strange in the shallow water. At first, they thought it was a rock. Then they realized it was a human skull. Police were called. Archaeologists showed up. And very quickly, everyone understood this was not a normal case. The bones belonged to a man who lived around 9,000 years ago. That alone made him one of the oldest human remains ever found in North America. He became known as Kennewick Man, though many native tribes later called him the Ancient One. Here's where the mystery really starts. When scientists first studied the skull, they noticed something unusual. The shape of the face did not match what they expected from Native American remains. Some researchers said he looked more like people from Asia or even Europe. That idea spread fast. Headlines followed, and suddenly, this ancient man became the center of a massive argument about who the first Americans really were. Native American tribes from the area, including the Umatilla, Yakima, Nez Perce, and others, spoke up quickly. To them, this man was an ancestor. Their oral stories said their people had always been here. They demanded that the bones be returned and buried according to their traditions. Scientists pushed back. They wanted more time to study the remains. They argued that this skeleton could help explain how humans first came to the Americas. Lawsuits followed. The bones were locked away. For years, no one could agree on what should happen next. This was not just science. It was culture, identity, and history crashing into each other. As the years passed, more studies were done. One major detail stood out. Kennewick Man had a stone spear point stuck in his hip. The wound had healed. That meant he survived a serious injury and lived many years after. This tells us he was strong and that his people likely cared for him. Someone helped him survive. That small detail makes him feel very human, not just a skeleton. For a long time, DNA testing was not possible because the bones were too old and fragile. So arguments continued based on skull shape and measurements. That method caused a lot of confusion and debate. Some early claims were exaggerated, and some were simply wrong. Finally, in 2015, scientists were able to extract ancient DNA. And this is where the story takes a turn. Finally, in 2015, scientists were able to extract ancient DNA. And this is where the story takes a turn. DNA showed that Kennewick Man was clearly related to modern Native American tribes. Not European, not some unknown group. He was closer to today's native people than to anyone else on Earth. That result changed everything. In 2017, after more than 20 years of fighting, the remains were returned to the tribes. A private burial ceremony was held at an undisclosed location. The Ancient One was finally laid to rest. So, mystery solved, right? Not exactly. Even though the DNA answered one big question, many others remain. How did his people arrive here so early? Did they come by land, by boat, or both? Why did his skull look so different from what scientists expected? And how many other ancient people existed along the Columbia River, whose remains were destroyed or lost before anyone could study them? Another part of the mystery is how close we came to losing this story forever. The Kennewick Man site was damaged by erosion, development, and human activity. If that skull had washed away just a little more, no one would have seen it. No debate, no discovery, no answers. Now let's talk about the site itself. Today, the area near where Kennewick Man was found looks calm and ordinary. The river flows quietly. People fish, walk, and enjoy the view. There is no big sign, no monument. Most visitors have no idea what happened there. That's both a positive and a negative. On the positive side, the land has not been turned into a tourist circus. It remains peaceful and mostly undisturbed. The tribes prefer it this way. To them, this is not a museum exhibit. It is sacred ground. On the negative side, there is very little public education at the actual location. Many locals don't even know the story. Without awareness, it's easy for future sites to be damaged or ignored. There's also the bigger issue. Many ancient sites along rivers like the Columbia have already been destroyed by dams, construction, and erosion. Kennewick Man reminds us that early history in the US is fragile. Once it's gone forever. Another uncomfortable truth is how the story was handled in the beginning. Early media reports pushed dramatic ideas without solid proof. That caused harm. It made tribes feel erased. It also damaged trust between scientists and native communities. The positive change is that this case helped improve how archaeology works today. Scientists are now more careful. Tribal voices are included earlier. DNA is used instead of guesswork. That's real progress. But the mystery feeling never fully leaves. When you stand by the Columbia River and think about a man walking there 9,000 years ago, hunting, getting injured, surviving, and living a full life, it hits differently. He was not a symbol. He was a person. My opinion, Kennewick Man is not just an ancient mystery. He's a warning and a lesson. A warning about rushing to conclusions, and a lesson about listening, especially to people whose history has been ignored for too long. I also think there is still much more buried along rivers, coastlines, and hills across Washington. Stories we will know. I feel really unsafe and fuddling. There is no more to feel it a dream. As for the present situation, the remains are now reburied and protected. The exact burial site is secret, which helps prevent disturbance. The original discovery area remains accessible to the public, but unmarked. Research continues in nearby regions, but with stricter rules and tribal cooperation. So today, the Ancient One rests again in the land he never left. The river still flows. The mystery is quieter now, but it's not gone. It lives in the questions we still ask, and in the respect we finally learned to show. Marmes Rockshelter, Palouse River. What if I told you that one of the most important ancient places in American history is now sitting under deep water, completely unreachable, like it never mattered. No warning signs, no second chance, just silence. This is the story of Marmes Rockshelter, a place that could have changed everything we know about early humans in North America, and was lost forever. The story begins in southeastern Washington, near the Palouse River. The land looks quiet today. Rolling hills, calm water. Nothing about it screams ancient mystery. But thousands of years ago, this spot was alive with people. Families lived here, cooked here, buried their dead here. And they did this not for hundreds of years, but for thousands. Marmes Rockshelter was a natural rock overhang formed by basalt cliffs. It protected people from wind, rain, and cold. That alone made it valuable. But what made it truly special was how long it was used. Layer after layer of human life built up over time, like pages in a book made of earth. When archaeologists first started digging there, in the 1950s and 60s, they quickly realized this was no normal site. Stone tools, fire pits, food remains, and human burials kept appearing the deeper they went. Each layer was older than the one above it. And then came the shock. Some of the remains were dated to over 13,000 years old. At the time, this was a huge problem for mainstream thinking. Back then, many experts believed the first people arrived in North America around 11,000 to 12,000 years ago. Marmes Rockshelter suggested humans were here much earlier, and not just passing through, but living full lives. One burial in particular stood out. The remains of a young man were found deep in the shelter. His bones showed signs of age and wear. This was not a short life. This was someone who lived, worked, and survived in a tough world. He was buried with care, which tells us something important. These people had rituals, beliefs, and respect for their dead. This wasn't just survival, this was culture. And then came the clock. At the same time archaeologists were uncovering these discoveries, the US government was building the Lower Monumental Dam on the Snake River. Once finished, it would create a reservoir that would flood large areas, including Marmes Rockshelter. Scientists begged for more time. They knew the site was special. Some called it one of the most important archaeological sites in North America. But construction moved faster than research. Funding was limited. Time ran out. In 1968, the water rose. Marmes Rockshelter was flooded and disappeared under the reservoir. Everything that wasn't already dug up was lost forever. That's the heart of the mystery. What else was there? How much older did the layers go? Were there even earlier humans living there? We will never know. The water sealed the answers away. Today, when people talk about ancient mysteries, they often imagine faraway places. But this one is different. This mystery wasn't lost to time. It was lost to a decision. Now let's talk about the emotions tied to this place. For archaeologists, Marmes is a painful memory. It represents knowledge that slipped through human hands. Many still talk about it with frustration and regret. It's often used as an example of why cultural sites need better protection. For native tribes in the region, the loss goes even deeper. This was not just a research site. It was a place where their ancestors lived and were buried. Flooding it meant disturbing human remains and cutting off a physical connection to the past. That pain doesn't disappear just because time passes. There are also unanswered questions about how early people lived here. The Palouse River area does not look friendly today, and it was even harsher thousands of years ago. Winters were cold. Food required skill to gather. The people of Marmes were clearly adapted, intelligent, and organized. Were they part of a coastal migration that moved inland? Did they arrive by river routes? Were there earlier camps nearby that we never found? The shelter hints at answers, but never finishes the story. Now, let's look at the site today. Marmes Rockshelter is now underwater, beneath the waters of Lake Herbert grounds. West, you cannot visit it. You cannot see it. Boats pass over it without knowing what lies below. That's the negative side, and it's a heavy one. The site is gone. No future digs. No new technology can reach it easily. Even if it could, disturbing it again would raise serious ethical concerns. But there are a few positives, strange as that may sound. The water protects what remains. Whatever artifacts or layers were left behind are now sealed off from erosion, construction, and looters. In a way, the site is frozen in time. It's untouched, not by choice, but by circumstance. Another positive outcome is awareness. Marmes Rockshelter changed how archaeological sites are treated in the US. Today, major construction projects must consider cultural and historical impact. Laws are stronger. Tribal consultation is more common. This site helped push those changes. Still, the loss hurts. My opinion? Marmes Rockshelter is one of the greatest what-if stories in American archaeology. Not because it was mysterious in a dramatic way, but because it was real, proven, and then taken away. It shows how fragile history is. One decision, one deadline, one rising river, and thousands of years of human story vanish from reach. I also think Marmes proves that early Americans were far more complex and adaptable than we once believed. They didn't just wander, they settled, they stayed. They built lives in places that required deep knowledge of land and seasons. As for the present situation, the site remains submerged and protected by law. No excavation is planned or likely. Artifacts recovered before the flooding are stored in museums and research collections. Scholars still study them today, trying to squeeze out every detail possible. The land above looks peaceful now, but beneath the water, a chapter of human history waits, silent, unseen, and unfinished. Columbia River rock art, petroglyphs and pictographs. What if I told you that some of the oldest messages ever left in North America are carved into stone along a river, but no one alive today can fully read them? They are not written words. They are not maps. They are images, faces, animals, shapes, and they have been staring back at us for thousands of years, waiting to be understood. This is the mystery of the Columbia River rock art. The Columbia River is massive. It cuts through Washington like a living spine. For thousands of years, it was not just a river, it was a highway, a food source, a meeting place, and a spiritual center. Long before dams, cities, or borders, native people lived along its banks. And they left behind stories, carved and painted directly onto stone. These artworks are known as petroglyphs and pictographs. Petroglyphs are carved or chipped into rock. Pictographs are painted onto rock using natural pigments. Along the Columbia River, both exist, and some of them may be over 10,000 years old. That alone should stop you for a moment. 10,000 years ago, someone stood by this river, held a stone tool, and carved an image that still exists today. But what do these images mean? That's where the mystery begins. Some carvings show animals, fish, birds, snakes, and deer. Others show human-like figures with strange shapes, large eyes, or exaggerated features. Some are simple, some are complex. Some repeat over and over along different parts of the river, almost like symbols in a language, but no key exists to decode them. Tribal elders say many of these images are spiritual. Some mark vision quest sites, where young people fasted and prayed for guidance. Others may tell stories about creation, floods, or powerful beings tied to the river. Some images may have been warnings. Others may have marked secret fishing grounds. The problem is that much of this knowledge was passed down orally, and over time, through disease, displacement, and forced removal, many stories were lost. So today, we see the images, but the voices that explain them are quieter. One of the most famous rock art areas was Celilo Falls, once one of the greatest fishing sites in North America. Tribes gathered there for thousands of years to fish for salmon, trade, and share culture. The nearby cliffs were covered in petroglyphs. In 1957, everything changed. The Dowles Dam was completed, and the water rose. Celilo Falls disappeared under the river. Along with it, many rock art panels were flooded, damaged, or lost forever. That moment still hurts. Some carvings are now permanently underwater. Others were removed and relocated before the flooding, placed in museums or parks. While that saved them physically, it removed them from their original context. A rock carving meant to face the river now sits on dry land, separated from the place that gave it meaning. That's a major negative. Another mystery is why similar symbols appear far apart along the river. The same shapes can be found hundreds of miles away. This suggests shared beliefs, long-distance travel, or communication between different groups. But how connected were these people? Did they speak related languages? Did they gather regularly? We don't know for sure. There are also figures that don't clearly match animals or humans. Some look abstract. Some look almost otherworldly. Over the years, fringe theories have popped up. Everything from lost civilizations to sky beings. Most experts dismiss those ideas. But the fact remains, some images are still unexplained. And then, there's the question of time. Rock art along the Columbia River was not made all at once. Some images may be extremely ancient. Others may be only a few hundred years old. Different generations carved over the same surfaces. Sometimes images overlap, which suggests changing beliefs or new meanings added to old places. That tells us something important. These sites were not abandoned. They were used again and again. They mattered. Now let's talk about the condition of these sites today. This is where things get complicated. On the positive side, some rock art sites are now protected. Places like Columbia Hills State Park and Horsethief Lake preserve large collections of petroglyphs. You can walk along trails and see carvings up close. Signs explain what little we know, and access is controlled to prevent damage. That's the good news. The bad news is that many sites were destroyed before protection existed. Dams flooded entire stretches of the river. Industrial work blasted cliffs. Some carvings were vandalized, scratched, or even painted over by modern visitors. Once damaged, rock art cannot truly be restored. Weather is another enemy. Wind, rain, freezing temperatures, and lichens slowly wear the images down. Climate change may speed this up. Rising water levels and stronger storms threaten what remains. There is also a deeper issue: respect. Some visitors treat these carvings as photo props, not sacred art. They touch them, trace them, or step on them. That may not seem serious, but even small actions can cause long-term damage. From the tribal perspective, this is not just art. These are living places. Some tribes believe the carvings still hold power. That power fades when sites are mistreated. Another mystery tied to the rock art is how much we've already lost without knowing it. Many carvings were never recorded before flooding. No photos, no drawings, just gone. That means our understanding of the full story will always be incomplete. And yet, even with all this loss, the surviving rock art still speaks. When you stand in front of a petroglyph carved into black basalt, you can feel the weight of time. You know someone stood there long before you. They chose that exact spot, that exact image, for a reason that mattered deeply to them. My opinion, the Columbia River rock art is one of the most powerful ancient mysteries in the United States, because it's not about missing objects, it's about missing understanding. The images are right there, clear as day, and yet we only grasp a small part of what they mean. I also believe we need to stop trying to force one single explanation onto them. Not everything was meant for us. Some messages were meant for spirits, some for future generations of their own people. Some meanings may never be spoken aloud. That's okay. What matters is protection, respect, and listening to the tribes whose ancestors created them. As for the present situation, many remaining rock art sites along the Columbia River are legally protected and monitored. Some are open to the public with restrictions. Others are kept quiet to prevent vandalism. Tribal nations continue to work with state and federal agencies to preserve what's left. The river still flows. The stones still hold their marks. And even though the voices are faint, the message is clear. People were here. They mattered. And their stories are not finished yet. Sunken villages of Puget Sound. What if whole villages are sitting beneath the calm waters of Puget Sound right now? Homes, tools, fire pits, places where people lived full lives, laughed, worked, and raised families, all hidden below the surface. No ruins you can walk through, no signs telling you where to look, just water and silence. This is the mystery of the sunken villages of Puget Sound. Puget Sound looks peaceful today. Ferries glide across it. Seals pop their heads above the water. Cities line the shores. It feels stable, permanent. But thousands of years ago, this place was very different. Sea levels were lower. Shorelines were farther out. What is water now was once dry land, and people lived there. After the last ice age ended, massive glaciers melted. Slowly, the ocean rose. Over time, it swallowed coastal areas all around the world. Puget Sound was no exception. Forests drowned, valleys filled. Camps and villages were left behind, covered by water, layer by layer. The mystery is not whether this happened, it's how much is down there and how little we've seen. Native tribes of the region, including the Coast Salish peoples, have oral histories that speak of villages lost to the sea. Stories of land sinking, waters rising, and people forced to move inland. For a long time, outsiders treated these stories as myths, but science is now catching up. Underwater surveys have found old tree stumps still rooted in place beneath the sound. Forests that once grew on dry land. Carbon dating shows some are over 9,000 years old. That alone proves the shoreline used to be much farther out. If forests were there, people likely were too. Archaeologists believe early coastal people relied heavily on the sea. Fish, shellfish, seals, and plants from tidal zones were central to survival. Living near the water made sense. These communities were skilled boat builders and navigators. They didn't just survive on the coast, they mastered it. But here's the problem. Most archaeological work happens on land. Underwater archaeology is expensive, slow, and difficult. Cold water, strong currents, poor visibility, all make Puget Sound a challenging place to explore. As a result, only small areas have been studied. That means entire villages could be sitting just offshore, untouched. In a few rare cases, evidence has surfaced. Stone tools dredged up during construction, old shell middens found below current sea level, pieces of worked wood preserved in low oxygen mud. Each find hints at something bigger, but hints are all we have. Another layer of mystery comes from earthquakes. The Puget Sound region sits on major fault lines. Powerful earthquakes in the past caused sudden land drops, where whole sections of coastlines sank at once. This could have drowned villages in a single moment, not slowly over centuries. Some tribal stories describe exactly that: a loud roar, shaking ground, water rushing in, land disappearing. That lines up with geological evidence. If villages were lost suddenly, they may be better preserved underwater than slowly flooded sites. Rapid burial can protect structures and tools. That raises an exciting but haunting thought. Some of these places may still be mostly intact, so why haven't we found them? Part of the reason is respect. Many tribes consider these sites sacred. They're burial grounds, homes of ancestors. Disturbing them is not taken lightly. Any exploration requires deep consultation and trust, and that trust has not always existed. Another reason is modern development. Ports, bridges, pipelines, and cables crisscross the sound. Construction can damage sites before anyone knows they're there. In the past, artifacts pulled up during dredging were often ignored or thrown away. That's a huge loss. Now, let's talk about the present condition of these sunken villages. Negatives first. The biggest negative is that most sites are unprotected, simply because they are unknown. You can't protect what you haven't found. Pollution, ship traffic, anchors, and construction all pose risks. Climate change adds another threat, with warming waters and changing chemistry that can damage organic materials. Another negative is that public awareness is very low. People don't think of Puget Sound as an ancient landscape. They see water, not history. That lack of awareness makes it easier for damage to happen quietly. But there are positives. Cold, dark, low oxygen water can preserve materials incredibly well. Wood, bone, and plant fibers that would rot on land can survive underwater for thousands of years. In some ways, these villages may be better preserved now than if they had stayed dry. There is also growing cooperation between tribes, scientists, and government agencies. New projects focus on non-invasive methods like sonar and remote sensing. These tools can map the seafloor without disturbing it. Slowly, carefully, knowledge is growing. Another positive is that tribal knowledge is finally being taken seriously. Oral histories are now used alongside geology and archaeology. When stories say, "Our village was there," researchers listen. That shift matters. Still, many questions remain unanswered. How many villages are there? Were they seasonal camps or permanent towns? How far back does coastal life in Puget Sound really go? Did some of the first Americans arrive here by boat and never leave the coast at all? These questions challenge older ideas about human migration. They suggest that the ocean was not a barrier, but a highway. When you stand on a Puget Sound beach today, you are standing far inland from where the shore once was. Somewhere out there, beneath the waves, are the footprints of people who came before everything we know. My opinion? The sunken villages of Puget Sound are one of the most emotional ancient mysteries in Washington. Not because of dramatic ruins, but because they remind us how easily history can disappear without being destroyed. Nothing burned, nothing collapsed. The sea simply rose. I also believe these sites deserve patience. Not everything needs to be recovered, displayed, or studied right now. Some places are meant to rest. Understanding can come from listening, mapping, and protecting, not digging. At the same time, ignoring them completely is also a loss. Balance is the key. As for the present situation, most suspected village sites remain unexplored and officially undocumented. Some areas are being studied using sonar and underwater imaging. Laws protect known cultural sites, but enforcement underwater is difficult. Tribal nations continue to guide decisions about if, when, and how exploration should happen. The water of Puget Sound looks calm today, but beneath it lies a hidden world, a coastline frozen in time, holding stories that are still waiting to be heard.